Well, hey everybody, today we're going to be checking out Lionel's latest rendition of the A6 442 Atlantic, and it's coming up right now on Eric Strains. So from time to time when I'm doing these reviews, I will try to wear a shirt or an outfit that has something to do with whatever I'm reviewing. And today I am wearing a Chicago hot dog shirt with the beautiful Vienna beef logo. And in fact, Chicago hot dogs are my favorite type of hot dogs, and I like mine all the way with the pickle and the little peppers and the celery salt and that neon green relish. It is so good. But why am I wearing a Chicago hot dog shirt today? Well, it's because the A6 we're going to be reviewing is a Chicago and Alton A6, something that I originally did not order, but I became captivated by it when I saw it on the shelf of my local train store. So without further ado, sit back, relax, grab yourself a hot dog, and let's get started. All right, so here's the box that our A6 Atlantic arrived in. It's got a model number of 2531600, Chicago and Alton Legacy A6 Atlantic number 554, with an on-the-water date of July 28th, 2025. Now, for today's unboxing, from my knife collection, we'll be using this guy. This is the Victorinox Ranger Grip 78. It's got a one-handed opening blade, which comes in handy for unboxings. There's the instruction booklet. Always good to read that. And here we go. Ooh, look at that. That is beautiful. I love that red color. Sort of maroon. It's got a nice weight to it. This is beautiful. And let's check out the tender. Oh yeah, that is gorgeous. I love it. All right, so here is our 442 Atlantic on the layout, and man, does this thing look sharp. So I thought we'd start off with a bit of history, and then we'll get into Lionel's model. So these things are called 442 Atlantics. What's that all about? Well, of course, the 442 refers to the wheel arrangement. Here in America, we count the wheels, not the axles, and so that means you've got 4 wheels up front, 4 drive wheels, and then 2 wheels on the trailing truck. And that gives you 442. Now, the reason these are called Atlantics, well, I'll get into that as I start talking about the history. So the first 442s go back to the late 1800s, starting in 1887 when the New York, Providence, and Boston Railroad added a trailing axle to existing 440 locomotives in order to spread the weight more evenly. However, it wasn't until around 1894 that the first purpose-built 442s were built by Baldwin for the Atlantic coastline. And since locomotive types are traditionally named after the first railroad to use them, at least here in America, since they were first used by the Atlantic coastline, they became known as Atlantics. Although sometimes they're called Milwaukees after the Milwaukee Road, but we'll get back to that. So those first Atlantics were built with relatively light wood-sided passenger cars in mind, and they became famous for hauling fast passenger trains of these wood-sided passenger cars. By the 1910s, however, railroads began buying and using heavier steel passenger cars, which were often too much for the Atlantics, and so the more powerful 462 Pacific-type steam locomotives became the standard choice for passenger trains. But of course, the 442 Atlantic wasn't finished because later improvements and upgrades would lead the 442 to once again be used in fast passenger service, most famously by the Milwaukee Road and their 442 Class A's that would pull the Hiawatha passenger trains to speeds up to 100 miles an hour. But those Atlantics are a different story, and if you've kept up with this channel, you know that I've got a little video in the works about the Lionel Hiawathas coming out in the near future. But anyway, Atlantics like this one served all the way up until the end of the steam era in the 1950s. So now let's turn our attention to Lionel's rendition of the 442 A6 Atlantic. Now this is not the first time Lionel's done this model. They have done it before, and in fact, I have a Lionel A6 Atlantic from the last time they did it in 2018. So I'll be able to compare this new one to the old one, and we'll see what's changed. Now the A6 that I have from 2018 is a Southern Pacific version with an oil tender rather than the coal tender that you see here, but it's the same model. I don't think I ever reviewed the A6 from 2018, but you'll get to see it today. So Lionel offered the new round of A6s in their 2025 Volume 1 catalog, and these were delivered just a couple weeks ago here in the fall of 2025. Lionel offered 6 road names, including Ann Arbor, Santa Fe, C&O, Chicago and Alton, like you see here, Chicago, Burlington and Quincy, and Erie. And they all had a retail price right at $1,000, $999.99. So let's get some stats on the A6. The length is right at 18.5 inches. Next, let's get a weight. Now, I'm gonna take a stab here. Let's see how good I am at this. I've been doing this for a long time. It's all metal. I'm gonna say it's got a good weight. I'm guessing probably somewhere between 6.5 and 7 pounds. Let's find out if I'm right or wrong. So, first we have our engine, just a tad over 4 pounds 10 ounces. And let's get our tender, just a tad over 2 pounds 9 ounces. And together, what do we got? Just a tad over 7 pounds 3.5 ounces. Hey, I was pretty close. I said 6.5, 7 pounds. I think that's pretty close. When I measured the pulling power on this locomotive, it came in right at 1 pound 15 ounces, which is actually pretty good considering you've only got 4 drivers. I mean, that's pretty darn good. Now, obviously, you're not going to be able to pull massively long trains like the mighty S2 that I just reviewed. But then again, these weren't meant for that kind of duty. These were mainly meant to pull passenger trains. And in that capacity, these are going to do a great job. Now, because it's only got 2 drive wheels and it's a relatively small steam locomotive, that means it's very friendly to layouts with tight curves. The minimum required curve to run the A6 is 0.31. Going in for some close-up shots, I want to show you some of the standout features on this model. Starting with the front, you can see this beautiful smoke box. We've got an operating headlight and lighted number boards up front, and then we've got operating classification lights here. And this model does have the bicolor classification lights, so the front classification lights can be changed between green, white, and off, and the rear classification lights on the back of the tender can be changed between red, white, and off. And as we swing around the side, you can see these nice add-on metal handrails and a legible builder's plate there. And down here you can see these beautiful drive wheels with all this running gear. It looks amazing when it's in motion. And the area under the cab here, just with that single set of wheels, looks great. The cab on this locomotive looks great. You've got some nice detail on the outside with that great paint scheme, the rivet detailing, and the grab irons. And then on the inside, you've got 2 hand-painted crew figures, a very detailed backhead with some hand-painted valves and gauges. The interior of the cab is lighted, and there's also a red glow in the firebox when the engine is in operation. Up on top at the front, we've got the smokestack, and there is a fan-driven smoke unit down in there, and to add smoke fluid to the smoke unit, you simply pour the smoke fluid directly down the stack. Behind that, you can see this really attractive dome with that 554 on it. Then we've got a very nice brass bell and another dome behind that. And then we've got the safety valves, the dynamo, and the whistle, and this engine is equipped with that whistle steam smoke effect. So when you blow the whistle, it'll shoot smoke out of the bottom and give the illusion of steam shooting out of the whistle. Here on the other side of the A6, you can see all this equipment here in the middle. I'm not exactly sure what this thing does. I'm sure somebody can tell me, but it looks great, and it's usually on these Atlantic models. And then we've also got some nice cast-in step and piping detail to the right of that. Here's a look at the gap between the locomotive and the tender, and this is where Lionel has made one of the most significant upgrades to this model compared to the 2018 release, and that is the addition of this hinged metal deck plate with safety tread on top. As you can see, it makes this thing look much more realistic, and it just looks amazing. Here's a look at the underside of the locomotive. You can see we've got 2 pickup rollers here. There are 2 traction tires on the last set of drivers, and then this still has the control switches on the underside of the locomotive, like some of the older toolings that Lionel has. They haven't updated this model yet. So we've got the smoke unit on-off switch here, we've got the run program switch back here, and then on the other side we've got the Bluetooth on-off switch. Here's the tender, and man, it just pops. I love this paint scheme. It's so crisp, it draws you in, and it's really one of my favorite spots on this model. You've got the cast-in rivets, the amazing paint job, as I said. You've got die-cast metal trucks down here, and then you've got add-on grab irons at the corners, and these nice cast-in steps down here as well. Here in the front, there's not much to see, but there is some nice cast-in detailing, and of course, you've got the receiving end of the drawbar assembly and the Lionel infrared tether there on top. On the back of the tender, there's a little more to see. We've got a die-cast metal electrocoupler down here that can be thrown remotely. Above that, we've got a really nice add-on coupler cut bar. There's some visible print here on the back of the tender. There's an add-on metal ladder. We've got an operating backup light with lighted number boards on either side, and then we've got operating classification lights, and again, these do have Lionel's bicolor classification light functionality built in. Up on top, we've got a real coal load. Yes, these are little bits of real coal, and then right here, we've got an opening water hatch. Lastly, here's a look at the underside of the tender. Once again, we have 2 pickup rollers just like on the engine, 1 per truck. We've got 2 speakers for the sound system, which is really nice. And then right here, we've got the sensor for the Lionel LCS sensor track if you choose to use one. And just in case you're curious, here's a look at the inside of the locomotive and a look at the inside of the tender. All right, now I want to talk about the price on this locomotive because as we all know, things seem to be getting expensive all over the place. The last time Lionel did the A6 in 2018, the retail price was $799.99, so right at $800. Here in 2025, this new A6 has a retail price of $999.99, so right at $1,000. So in 7 years, they've added $200 to the price of this locomotive. And so unlike the S2, where they only added $100 over the last 12 years, $200 in 7 years, yeah, you can feel the inflation effect a bit more. Now, to be fair, the $1,000 price tag is still below what the inflation rate has been. So if you look at it from an inflation perspective, Lionel has kept it in check. But still, you're paying an extra $200. However, you are getting a little more than you did in 2018. So let's talk about what you're getting on the new 2025 version versus what you got in 2018. So the biggest upgrade in my mind is the addition of the hinged deck plate between the locomotive and the tender. That adds a lot more realism and it's a really great touch. You've also got all the new tech upgrades that have happened since 2018. So you've got the bicolor classification lights on the locomotive and the tender. You've got a choice of 5 bells and 5 whistles. You've got 4-digit addressing. You've got Bluetooth on board. And I think Lionel has done a better job with the volume on the new A6. The previous A6, it was a much more quiet locomotive. It just wasn't as loud. You always have to turn the chuff effect way up to get any sort of heft out of it. Whereas on this new A6, they've raised the volume, and so it actually sounds a lot better, in my opinion, than the 2018 version. So yeah, it is an extra $200 compared to the 2018 version, but you are getting more, and you also have to account for all the inflation that's been going on. Inflation has been crazy over the last few years, and so you're definitely feeling it a little more on this model than you did with the S2. It's a bit of a win some, lose some situation, but overall, I love this model. All right, the last thing we're going to do before we start this thing up is... Okay, my pick for BFIMO, actually I've got a couple picks. First of all, the main reason I bought this locomotive, as I said, I didn't originally order one, but when I saw it on the shelf, the paint job is what appealed to me. That's what caught my eye, and so that's probably my favorite thing about this model, the exquisite paint job. But as a runner-up, I'm also going to choose the hinged deck plate that Lionel added to this model, just to give it a little more realism. I think it's a nice touch, and I'm really glad they did that. So yeah, the great paint job and that hinged deck plate, both of those make this a winner in my book. All right, now comes the fun part. Let's go ahead and start this thing up.
Train 1 brakeman, let's get an application for continuity test. Good application, okay to release. Train 1 brakeman, we have good set, good release, good continuity on timetable train number 1. Over. Yeah, that's Roger. Good set, good release, good continuity is timetable train number 1. Out.
So as is typical for modern high-end Lionel locomotives, we've got a choice of 5 whistles and 5 bells. We'll check out the whistles first. My favorite whistle is number 3. Let me know which one is your favorite. And now we've got the 5 bells. My favorite bell is number 1. Let me know which one is your favorite. And we've got some additional sounds. Here's the sound of water being added to the tender.
My water's full. Out.
And here's the cylinder steam sound. And here's the sound of coal being added to the tender. And last but not least, here's a sampling of some of the crew talk sounds.
Dispatcher, am I clear to move? Over. Need to hold you. Hold me a signal. Out. Dash pans are empty.
Switchless says we've got 1 off and 3 on at the head end.
What are your orders?
Says hold here for 2 east and then take the main to the next interlocking. Hold the main and we'll hoop orders past the tower.
Timetable only gives us 10 minutes for this stop. I'll tend the fire. Go top off the tape.
Train orders say holding the siding until 44 clears, then we can take the main. You should be through any minute.
Okay, we're ready to go. Now, unfortunately, right now, I don't have any Chicago and Alton passenger cars. I hope to at some point in the future, but for today, we're just going to run it with some freight cars. Let's go ahead and move it out. right, so there you have it, Lionel's new A6 442 Atlantic. This is an absolutely gorgeous model, and I am so happy that I picked one of these up. Like I said, I originally didn't order one. It was a spur-of-the-moment purchase, and it's one that I don't regret in any way whatsoever. Now, again, if you want to get one of these, the original retail price is right at $1,000, although, you know, when you take into account the tariffs, you might end up paying a little more, but there's nothing Train Stores or Lionel can do about the tariffs. They're trying to deal with it just like we are. So you'll have to shop around to get the best deal. But of course, if you go through a good Lionel dealer, you should be able to get the best deal possible and maybe get it near or less than that $1,000 retail price. And as always, if you're looking for a good Lionel dealer, try my favorite Train store, which is Legacy Station. You can find them on the web at legacystation.com or give them a call at 770-339-7780. If you'd like to support this channel, you'll have my eternal gratitude. That can be done through Patreon at patreon.com/ericstrains. Patreon supporters get all sorts of perks and benefits, and you can read about those benefits on my Patreon page. I'd like to put a big thank you out there to all of my current Patreon supporters, and an extra super big thank you goes out to my premium tier Patreon supporters. You'll see their names at the end of this video. Anyway, that's going to do it for now. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I'm Eric Siegel. Thanks for watching. Stay safe, and I'll see you next time. To discuss this model or any other O-gauge model, or just to talk trains in general, check out the OGR online forum at ogrforum.com.